Have your clothes got some holes in them? Don't throw them away. Think about mending them in a visible way with a Speedweve. There's a link on the screen and a link in the description if you don't already own one. And if you do and you just realise you've got really poor instructions, stick with me. I'm going to show you exactly how to make your designs using your Speedweve darning loom. So the first thing you've got is a hole in an item of clothing. I'm just using a bit of jeans so that you can see how to do it. So the first thing you're going to do is take the disc that you've got and you're going to put it behind the hole. And you want the hole to be about in the middle so that you cover it well. Then use one of your elastic bands and wrap it around. There'll be a groove in your disc that the band should sit in nicely. Once you're happy that's secure and it's where you want it, it's time to attach the loom. So you're going to push it into that groove. And sometimes it's a little bit resistant because it's a tight fit. But push it into that loom, into the groove, and once you're happy with it, you're going to attach it there using another elastic band. So take the band and put it around the back of the loom and then hook it over the disc. Now what you'll find is this can be a little bit fiddly, and because you've already got band in there, sometimes it'll just ping off, just like mine has done. Don't worry, just go again and just make sure you get it nice and secure. You want everything held really well while you do your darning. Once you're happy and everything's lined up and where you want it to be, you need to start thinking about your actual design and what you're actually going to do on your fabric. It can be a good idea to mark it so that you know where you're working. Now I'm using tailor's chalk here. Actually, I found it wore off and was quite difficult to see. So sometimes I use a pen or a pencil. But you don't have to mark it. You're just likely to be more accurate and get a cleaner, crisper shape if you do. And once you're happy with where you're working, it's time to start. So you're going to need your embroidery threads. Now for me, I'm going to use 3 different colours to make stripes. And I'm just going to use one colour for what we call the warp threads, the ones that run from the fabric up to the hooks. So I'm going to use a pink for that. I think all the other colours will contrast nicely. So take yourself a long length. You don't have to do all these warp threads the same colour. You can do stripes on there as well if you like, and then you'd end up with a checkered effect. But however long you want to make your thread, you're going to get your thread and you're going to thread your needle. Now I've reached a certain age where threading needles can be a challenge, and I'm sure some of you can completely relate to that. So you'll see I use a needle threader, but it doesn't matter. And this is just a really cheap one that came with some needles. So once you've got your thread and you've got your needle, you want to put your needle into the fabric near the edge of the disc and pop up at the bottom corner of your shape where you want your warp threads to start. You can see on mine. And then leave a nice long tail because you're going to use that later to secure your thread, and just make a little stitch. You're just doing a little stitch to secure it and work from. And then you need to go up to your hooks and hook around one of them. Hook your thread around one. Now you can go right out to the end one, or you can start part way along. It's entirely up to you how big your patch you're going to make is. And you'll see that it can be a bit fiddly. Now this first one, I'm deliberately doing it the difficult way and making it really fiddly, and you can see just how fiddly it is. But you can do it and you can get it on the hook. And then you take your thread back to where you started and do another little stitch next to the first one. Just tiny. And then when you pull that through, you'll see you've formed your first pair of warp threads, and then you're just going to repeat. Now as I've said, it's really fiddly, so a good little trick is to just stand up some of the hooks. Once the hooks are standing up, not squashed flat against all the others, it's much easier. Do you see how much easier that was? And then do a little stitch up to the top, next hook, and just work your way all the way along those hooks. Now obviously if you want to change your colour of thread along the way, you can do that. Just take your thread out to the edge of your disc like you started, and then start a new one in exactly the same way. But you're going to work all the way across until you've got enough warp threads for the width of the patch that you want to make. you can see I'm moving across and getting closer to that white line that I made, which is showing me where I want to stop at this end. And then once you're happy with it, needle in, out near the edge of the disc, and leave that tail. So you should now have all your warp threads, and then just make sure all your hooks are facing one way, because that's how you should have them. And that's all ready then to do the weaving backwards and forwards to form your weft threads. So for my first stripe, I'm using this really nice bright pink. So again, you're going to cut a length. Now, if you're doing it all one colour, cut a nice long length. If you're doing lots of stripes and you're only going to do a few back and forth, nice short thread. That's up to you, it's your design. But get your needle threaded up, and then you're going to start in exactly the same way. Put the needle in near the edge of the disc and bring it out near the bottom of those warp threads. So it doesn't matter where on the disc you're coming from. Oh, we've got a visitor. That's Emily the cat who's come to help. Great. Oh, she's going to sit there. I'm not sure that's the best idea while we're doing this. Leave yourself a tail, and then let's see if we can move this one to the left of me. Oh, yeah, she's going to go. Fabulous. Oh no, we're having another pass. Knock the camera, make it all shaky. Great, thank you, Emily. Right, she's gone now. So, once we've got our little stitch at the bottom there, because yes, I forgot to say, form a little stitch, we're ready to start weaving. So make sure all your hooks are facing one way, and I tend to face them the way I'm going to go. And then you're going to push your needle through. Now you'll see I've got a separate needle, a bigger one, that I use to push between the threads, and then that holds them open nicely for me to push my threaded needle through. Now I also push the blunt end through because that also tends to open up the threads a bit less. Just makes it a much easier job, and I'm all for easier. So pull your thread tight and then use your other needle again just to squash it down. If you've ever done any weaving, you know that's common practice. Now in a lot of these kits you get a tool that looks a bit like this, and you can use that to push through. Sometimes they have a hook on the end so you can pull your thread back through with it. I've chosen to do it with the needle, partly because I prefer it and partly because everybody's got a needle. So then do a little stitch at this end. You'll see sometimes it's a little bit awkward because you've got the wooden disc behind. Don't worry, you'll get there. And then it's time to go back through. But first of all, you must flick the hooks the other way. So you simply flick them all across, and that swaps the threads over, ready for you to weave back again. So put that needle through, open them up nicely, and then feed your thread through. And then pull it nice and tight, squash it down again, and you should be really starting to see a weave appear. You should be seeing that pattern that you're expecting. And you've now completed an across and back, so you're off and running. So you're going to do another little stitch, and you'll see you're slowly working your way up your patch with these nice small stitches. And then remember, flick those hooks across again. All the way across. Put the needle through and thread your thread through. Pull it tight, squash it down, little stitch. And you can see all we're doing now is repeating that process again and again. Now, if you want to go one colour all the way to the top, feel free. It actually makes a really nice patch. If you want to do stripes, like me, then you're just going to do as many as you want to make your stripe as wide as you want it. And then you're just going to let your end finish and start a new one. And it's all exactly the same. And you can see you just have to remember to make sure you flick your hooks in between each pass, or it won't work. You can see you've done a little stitch, And then I'm going to go out to the edge because I'm happy with the width of that stripe. So whenever you want to change colour, that's all you need to do. Just go out to the edge, and that's that stripe finished. So I'm just going to secure it down, get nice and tight, and then swap to the next colour. So all you do is thread your needle up, come in from the edge of the disc again, and then do a little stitch, flick the hooks, and away you go. So I hope you're enjoying this video and finding it helpful. And if you are, please could you give me a thumbs up below so it spreads to more people who are wanting to do some visible mending or desperate to work out how to operate that Speedweve they've bought. And if you're really liking the video, think about subscribing so you can see all my videos as I post them up on YouTube. The whole channel is about crafting on a budget, so it really is for all of us to enjoy. So I've left the whole thing in here so that I don't jump any steps and you don't get lost, and I've just sped it up so you don't get too bored. But I do like to include everything so that whatever I'm showing you, you should be able to follow and do yourself. So coming to the end of that second stripe, and through we go. Little stitch, out to the edge, final colour. Now what you'll find as you work your way along your patch and get nearer to the hooks is that it gets harder to get your needle through, to open up where you're taking your thread through. So just might have to take a little bit more time and a little bit more care, because we're going to go right up to those hooks. You might also find it's harder to do your little stitch because the loom's in the way and those hooks. Again, just take your time. You can do it, as you can see, but you will also notice I sometimes have a little bit of difficulty. It can be tempting to think, oh, it's getting too difficult, I'll just leave it there. I don't recommend that. You want to go as close to your hooks as you can so that you end up with a really nice tidy end on your patch. You can see me starting to struggle a little bit now, especially with getting the stitch at the end. So you might find you just have to wiggle that needle a little bit to get it through, instead of it just going through nice and easily. So if you watch, I'm wiggling it. It's just not as easy. But it's going to be worth it to get that final pass. And make sure those are little small loops at the end. So you can see, I'm going to try and squeeze it in there with the other needle. Might not be able to, but it's just holding it open for me, so I'm trying. Take the big one out in a minute. Let's get it through. There we go. Little stitch. We're always doing a little stitch at the end. We don't want to just go straight through to the back. It just makes it a little bit more secure. Holds it down better. And then you can see I've got it hooked on a hook. So I'm just going to loosen that thread and get it back. And I'm just going to push through the loops and make sure it's nice and tight. So once you've finished, again, we're going to take your thread out to the side. We've got a completed patch. Oh, just gone through the band there. Let's just bring it back. And it's going to be time to take everything apart. So the first thing you have to do is get that band off so we can take the loom off. So what you might want to do is thread up some thread for fastening those loops down. Doesn't matter if you do this first or once you've taken the loom off. But I choose to use the same colour as the loops, but you could use any colour you like. So take that top elastic band off first, and you'll find all your threads get caught. Don't worry, just feed them all through so that they're all loose on the fabric. and then you should be able to pull the loom out of the groove. Now obviously it's on all the hooks, so you're just going to have to wiggle it and unhook it, and it's free. Then take the other elastic band off and you can take the disc out from underneath. So now you've got a patch, but it's not secured. So what you need to do is take the thread that you threaded up, come in from away like we normally do, but come up through that first loop. And then go down through your fabric and up through the second loop. And then down through the fabric and up through the next loop. Down through the fabric and up through the next loop. And just keep working your way all the way along until you have gone through every single loop. And what you're doing here is whip stitching this edge down. And you really do want to make sure you capture every loop. It's not too tricky. Just work your way all the way along. And then once you've secured every single loop, you want to put your needle back into the fabric, and take yourself onto the wrong side. Because we now need to start finishing our ends off. So we'll start with this one. You can finish them off however you like. A lot of people like to just weave through the back of those stitches and secure it that way, and that's okay. Some people like to do a knot stitch where you just do a little stitch and then put the needle through the loop and it forms a small knot. It's entirely up to you how you secure your threads. So that's that one secured. So you've now got a completed patch, but you've also got all these threads around the side. So you can easily see them to pull them onto the back because you've got that giant stitch. So pull them all through and then secure them like you did with the other thread, and just take them one at a time and secure them in your chosen way, and then you will have completed your patch. And in a moment I'm going to show you what the back of your patch will look like, and you can see what the front looks like and talk about different designs. Don't limit yourself just because the loom looks like you should be doing a rectangular patch. It's very easy to do triangles or hearts. So experiment with your colours, experiment with your shapes, and most of all, enjoy the fact you're doing visible mending of your clothes, you're giving them a longer life, and you're helping save the planet. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.